that this is a live chat about being a creative. And normally they happen every week, but just now I'm doing them just over the summer. I'm just doing two, one in July, which is this one, and then another one in August, and then we start again on the weekly in September. And they're just all about different topics to do with being a creative. So the very last one that we did, or the last two, were about Gwyneth, welcome. They were about people taking on a specific 3-month commitment to something. Whatever was going on in their lives, they were looking at trying to complete a task or a project or something. So, was it Amber say? Oh, Amber's doing well, hanging out in California. Oh yes, and when you're in LA, let me know. Amber's trying actor hair out. Excellent, nice lipsticks. Thanks, Marshall. I'm do my best there. Do my best. George, welcome. Hello. I hope you're doing well. Let's see how we go with this. So I'm going to start because got quite a lot to get through, and as always, I feel like I might go into after party territory again because I want to check in with people who have actually committed to projects and just see how they're getting on. Hey, Mandy. Oh, you've changed your picture. So let's start. So the reason that Asha, hello, welcome. So the reason that I chose the grind is because it was geared towards the people that took on this 3-month commitment, but it applies to everybody. And basically, the reason I chose that is I was thinking that if people have chosen to commit to like a 3-month project, round about now, if they are still on track, it's gonna, or if they're still doing it, it's gonna start to feel a bit like a grind. And for me, the more I do these conversations, the more I'm realizing that, you know, the creative thing that we're doing, a huge part of that is just about graft and hard work, and not as just kick the tripod, not as much as we think is to do with talent. So I talked right off the bat, I think one of the really early conversations I talked about weighing up talent against hard work. And actually, the more I think about it and the more I sort of read about it and just absorb stuff, I'm realizing that hard work accounts for so much of what successful people have. I think we have this idea that there are these people who are naturally gifted and they just naturally ascend to the top of whatever field they're in. But I actually think that a lot of what successful people have is to do with how much they apply themselves and how much they get into a habit of being almost religious about their practice of their craft. You know, you look at sportsmen, they don't, yes, you'll find street kids probably who are naturally gifted, but if you put them on a football field to, like, say we're talking about soccer players, like, if you put them on a football field, they wouldn't last the 90 minutes because they haven't done the training to be fit enough. So as much as like natural aptitude can get you a certain way, the graft is really what's going to take you to the very top. And so this 3-month commitment that people have made is going to start to feel like a bit of a grind. It's going to feel like a bit of graft. So I wanted to check in with people and just let you know that if it feels like that, then you're on track. I'm just going to go back and read some of the comments. Andrew has joined. Welcome, Andrew. And Eduardo's Aesthetic. That's a good name for a creativity chat. Hey, Andrew. And Greg, hiya. And Ian. Evening, Ian. How's it going? So that's the thing. It's about the hard work. And then I was watching this video on Facebook. No, it was a TED Talk, actually. And this guy was talking about how successful corporations, the really successful ones, connect their consumers with why they are in business selling this particular product or service. Because he said a moderately successful business will tell you why you should buy their product or service. But he says like a really successful one will connect you with why they're actually doing it. What's the ethos at the center of their business. So his example was Apple. He said Apple's ethos was not about selling iPads or iPhones or laptops. It was about changing the world, and they were using technology to do that. And that is why, and I kind of see what he was getting at. I think that is why Apple has such a loyal fan base, because people, I mean, how many products have fans? Like, we often buy stuff because we like it, but we're not necessarily a fan of that product. We're not going to queue outside of their their one of their shops or whatever to be who queues outside the Body Shop because they're releasing a new hand cream, and actually they do have a why, but I'm just saying that, like, how Apple have done it is they've connected people to the who they are, the why they are doing it, and that is what keeps and sustains their fan base and stuff, and it motivates them in a different way to produce the products that they produce. So they're coming from this ethos of, how am I going to change the world? So it just made me think about when you are grinding on a particular project, especially if it's a long-term thing. And like I said, some people are taking on this idea of taking on a 3-month project, which is quite a lengthy amount of time. 12 weeks is a good amount of time to take on a project. Sometimes it can feel like a grind because you've disconnected from your why. And I was thinking, having a why as to why you're doing it isn't just something that corporations should have. We should have it too. We shouldn't be just like, I'm just doing it because, why? Why are we doing this? What is it that we want? What is it that, we want to see at the end of this? Because I think when we're connected to our why, then people who get involved with what we're doing, when we try and enroll people to be in our team to help us or whatever, they'll get where we're coming from more than, like, if you said to, I don't know, say you're trying to make a short film and you go to a camera person, I really want you to be my camera person because I need a camera person to make my short film. It's like, cool, okay, and I'll pay you X amount. Cool, they'll get that it's a job. But if you say to them, I have this idea about really representing deaf children who just seem to be treated like they're this invisible entity, and I really want to present this new way of experiencing deafness that can empower deaf people. Would you be the cameraman on that? That is going to motivate someone. They're not even going to talk about money necessarily straight away, because they're going to get your why. They're going to get why you're doing it. So the why for all of us is really important. And I don't even know exactly, I think we should be able to have a concise little sentence that we can say, this is why I'm doing it. And I think it's really powerful when it involves other people. So if your why, and basically this deafness thing that I just described is the woman who won the short film Oscar this year, the silent child. So we should all have a why, because then the grind makes more sense. We're not just grinding for the sake of it. We're not just grinding for the sake of just having a book or a film or whatever it is that we're hustling for. That's not the objective. The objective is to continually express the why, and then the products that we produce, the services that we create, the art that we create is just almost like a byproduct of it, so that our objective is grander than just producing a book, a film, a painting, a photographic exhibition, whatever, a screenplay. Hi Lydia, Kevin, Andy, welcome. And Amber says she loved that short film. It was a great film, and well-deserved win. So the why. So that's something that we've got to think about. Is like, why the hell are we even doing this? Because being a creative is not a mundane job. Do you know what I mean? We're dealing with huge movements of energy and magic, basically. So you want to know why why you're meddling in magic. Hello, Eduardos. Is it Eduardo S hyphen? Anyways, hello, and hello, Peely. Also, another thing with your why is don't play small. I was having a conversation with someone I know recently, and they were saying that at one point they had this ambition that they wanted to be the greatest actress ever. And it was an interesting conversation, because I didn't want to be rude, but it's kind of like, what are you doing to make that real? And lots of reasons why they hadn't done any real thing. They'd spent a lot of time trying to find an agent. But what occurred to me is that their goal, the game that they were playing was very small, because basically, and everyone's got to do things in their own way and in their own time, but were they to ask me my opinion, I would say that what you're doing is you're making your dream somebody else's problem, because all her goals were predicated on getting an agent. And then from there somehow the problem would be solved. But it's just like, what classes are you in? You know, what videos are you making? What are you reading to get yourself to this place of greatest actress ever? So don't make your dream somebody else's problem. Don't palm it off to somebody else. You should want this problem, because remember I was saying before, I was talking about how life is not about getting rid of problems. Life is about taking on bigger problems. And Rasmus, who's not here, he was pulling me up on that, saying, oh, it's not problems, it's like opportunities or whatever. You call it whatever you want. But you want bigger and bigger problems to solve in life. You know, remember the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it's basically this pyramid of human needs. And at the very bottom of it is, hang on, I wrote this down. Physiological, so you know, air, you know, you need air to breathe, you need water to drink, you need food. So once those needs are taken care of, you move up to the next level, which is safety, somewhere to live, shelter, and then love and belonging. So that might include having a work team and colleagues and stuff like that, and then esteem, whatever that might look like, and then self-actualization, which is at the top of the pyramid is self-actualization, which is basically living to your highest potential. So each one of these is a problem to solve, because not having water is a problem to solve. Not having air is a problem to solve. If you're drowning, you want to solve that problem. You want to get some air. You want to get to the surface. So once you've solved that problem, then you can think about the next thing, shelter and, you know, love and belonging. So you move through these different tiers. You want to be dealing with bigger problems, and you don't want your problems to be somebody else's problem. Yes, you want to bring people in to help, assist, support, but that's very different from going, ugh, you deal with it, you find me a job, and then I'll be brilliant when you get me the job. Everything artists do, even though it may not lead to the specific job that you end up getting, everything you do is having yourself be in a state of preparedness. So, an example I said the other day is like, say a mechanic who's qualified and trained or whatever, but he hasn't touched a car, or she hasn't touched a car for like 5 years, and then suddenly someone comes to them, family friend comes to them and says, my car's broken down, I don't know what's wrong with it, can you take a look? And they're like, sure, but they can't remember anything. And that applies to every person in every creative pursuit. If you're not in this state of doing, even if it's not the thing that leads you to get to the job, you're not going to be ready when that opportunity comes. That mechanic will just like be scratching his chin, and it will start to come back to him slowly, but it will take a minute. And maybe that family member will go, do you know what, I'll take it to a proper garage, and then you've lost that opportunity. And it's the same with the creative field. If you're sitting around on your ass, or you've come up with other reasons basically why you're not doing things to get you where you want to get to, when that opportunity comes, you won't be ready. So a lot of what we do is getting ourselves into a state of readiness. So being in action, being in your grind, is giving you this edge that you need basically to make it. Okay, so Eduardo says, the question is, how do the hungry create art? Well, what is the question really there? What do you mean? Because are you talking metaphorically hungry, or are you talking actually hungry? Peely says, I agree. Life challenges are definitely opportunities for personal growth. And growth is not always, you know, pleasant. It can be painful. You know, think of teenagers literally going through growing pains. It's not always pleasant, but who you are on the other side of it is the person your former self would love that person, you know, on the other side of that personal growth. Pesky just joined. Welcome. Amber says, yeah, not riding a bike. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Exactly. Imagine the uphill struggle it is to go from 0 to 100. But if you've been chugging along nicely at sort of, I don't know, 75, then when that opportunity comes, you're like, change gear, I've got it. So Amber says, I meant when you have to get ready, it's like riding a bike, takes too long. Stay ready. No, I got it. I've got it completely. Marshall says, very true. Use it or lose it. Exactly that. And I think that people think that creativity isn't a skill to be honed and kept, taken care of. Take care of it. Take care of your creativity. Don't just assume that it's always going to be there. Like my example would be with stand-up comedy. So I've been doing a lot of acting recently, and I was on stage at the Comedy Store, and it just felt completely alien. Luckily, I wasn't having to do a routine, but I could feel that I really felt a respect for stand-up as a craft, because I could feel that, having not done it for a little while because of these other commitments, the skill had ebbed away. I know that I could get it back, but I felt very respectful of the people that were continually hustling and doing it, because you have to stay on your game in any field. You can get it back, but if you're not where you want to be, why are you letting it go? You know, you should be holding on to it to get to where you want to get to. Maybe then you can afford yourself a break, but until then, hold on to it, nurture it, look after it. So, before I started this, I was just doing a little bit of research on this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he says that there was one other level that he added to it later on in his life that doesn't appear in the sort of common version of it. Self-actualization, or reaching your full potential, is usually at the top of that pyramid, but he added later self-transcendence above that, which is basically focusing on altruism, thinking of things outside of yourself, awakening, unity, that type of thing. And I mention it only because I think when I was talking about the why earlier, I think that part of a good why is not just about you. So, for example, if your why was, I just want to be the greatest actor ever, that's a very fine why as to why you are doing everything you're doing. But it's very egocentric, because you want to be the greatest actor, and then what? How does that impact the world? What gift does that give the world? Now, if you wanted to represent the LGBTQ community in a positive way and create positive dialogue around those social groups through your acting, say like Lena Waithe, that would be a why, because that's not about you, that's about a contribution and a gift that you can make to not just a community, but actually to the world, because you will be transforming the world through that conversation. And even if you didn't get to the heights that she has, even if you were just doing it on a like a community theatre level, you would still be provoking a positive conversation, and who knows who might hear that conversation and what ripple effect that could be. So yes, it's nice to be the greatest actor ever, wouldn't that be lovely? Yes, but wouldn't it be incredible to initiate a dialogue that could create some real change and positivity in the world? So your why, I feel, you want to think of it more in terms of what's the contribution. And I don't know if you remember, ages ago I was talking about, I had a conversation with an executive at Fox who was asking me, when he said, what do you want? And I told him, series regular. And he was like, that's not really interesting. You want to be thinking in terms of what is your contribution. And I think more of us need to think in terms of what are we contributing to the world through this creativity, rather than it being about somehow validating some part of our own ego. It can be about what are we filling the world with by giving the world what we've got. Because ultimately we're channeling universal energy, so it doesn't even belong to us anyhow. So it's a sort of a delusion that we think that this creative expression that we've got is anything to do with us anyway. So with that in mind, it's sort of like you owe it, not in a guilt. Therefore you can't enjoy your creativity, but it's kind of like it's passing through you. It's not of you. Griffiths has joined. Welcome back. And Eduardo says in terms of Maslow, the physically can still create art. Okay. I think I understand what you're saying. So basically, physiological needs need to be met before you can create art. That's the bottom rung of his thing. You can't be thinking about painting a lovely picture if you can't breathe or you're dying of thirst. However, you're right. Somebody could not feel safety and in that somehow create art. You're absolutely right. This isn't finite. This isn't absolute. So I get you're arguing a philosophical point on this, but I think probably better to just take away the more global idea rather than argue the specifics, if that makes sense. But I get your point. It's not finite. It's not absolute. Steve says, "Oh, welcome, Steve. By the way. I love that point about universal energy. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I really do stand by that. I think that the reason that creativity occurs and looks differently on different people is because we, our beings, are individual filters. But we're filters. We're not just generators. Do you know what I mean? Like, we are letting the universe." The universe will come through us anyways, and how we put it into the world is the universal expression, tainted or coloured by who we all are, who each of us individually are. Andrew says, what can I give rather than what I can get is a good philosophy for life in general. Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because, like, you know, I think a lot of the time about what I want rather than what I'm giving, and this conversation is as useful for, hopefully it's useful for me as it is for you, because I'm thinking now, like, about my why and what the contribution is, and I think it's one of those things that you have to constantly, like, reinvent every day, every week, every time, so that you don't lose track of it, because you can't. I think life is about constantly creating every day this new idea of yourself, rather than just having this fixed, like, I am this and therefore I live my life like this, because there's a deadness to that. You've got to invent this thing every day. I was thinking the other day about kindness, and I was thinking, say you lived your life as 10 years of being pretty kind to people, nice, generous, or whatever, and then one day you killed someone out of malice. Could people call you still a kind person? And I don't think they could, because you just killed someone cold-bloodedly in malice, not by accident, not out of self-defense. You did it because you hate them. And so every day is a reinvention of who you are as a person. And so if we're thinking about what our contribution is, we've got to think of it every day, generate it afresh every day. And therefore that gives you the opportunity to change and flow with how life changes and flows around you and through you. Dorcas 12100, hello, and Insomnimum, hello. Good name, I like that. I'm gonna do a little after party thing, depending on how long this goes. The people who've been here before know that sometimes these overrun a little bit. They're meant to be an hour, but I want the after party bit. I just want to check in, because I have got this lovely list of all these people that took on these tasks, and I just want to check in with whoever's here who has taken on these 3-month projects to see how they're getting on. But I want to do that afterwards, because I want to do this part of the conversation first. So, as I was thinking about this 3-month project that people have taken on, and what I would be like if I was, well, I am on a 12-month project. I committed to something as well. I thought the one thing that really came up really strongly for me was procrastination. So I thought we could talk about that. I wanted to make it a whole other conversation, so we may come back to it. But procrastination. So I didn't think of myself as a procrastinator, but I had a real wake-up call about a month ago. It was more than that probably. It's probably about 3 months ago, where I was talking. I have a coach that I talk guilty as fuck, Amber's saying. So I have a sort of career coach that I talk to once every couple of weeks, and we just check in, talk about that. Anyway, so some of you may know I've been writing a book, and my method was to perfect every chapter before moving on, but it meant I didn't get very far with it. I only got to about 8 chapters. I sent it to my editor thinking that, well, I've perfected these chapters, so she's not going to have any notes, but she did. She had quite a lot of notes, and I was really demotivated. I stopped writing. I was, it was bad. And then I had a conversation with this coach, and I realized that my trying to perfect these chapters was procrastination. Now, That blew my mind, because I've always imagined procrastinators as being people who are meant to be doing something but either do nothing, or they end up doing their tax returns, or they, you know what I mean? Like, I never thought that being so busy on the topic that you're meant to be, on the project that you're meant to be dealing with, could also show up as procrastination. So I thought it would be good to let's talk about it. So Amber says guilty. Yes. Steve says I want to make procrastination another topic. I may come back to it. Ha ha ha. No, I mean again. But anyways, I get what you're saying. Ha ha. Chloe, welcome. Tom, hi. And George says, oh yeah, that is me. Okay, well here we go. We're going in. So what does procrastination look like? First of all, it can look like doing nothing. That's one form of procrastination. It can look like doing something unrelated. So, you know, it's a quintessential, oh, I'm just going to tidy my sock drawer. Oh, the kitchen, I'm going to clean the oven. You know, all that sort of stuff. It can also be doing things inefficiently. So you can, well, basically what I was doing was like, you know, trying to perfect every word, and I was literally spending an hour on some paragraphs or whatever. So you're doing things ineffectively or not committedly sometimes. That's another way it can show up, is that you're sort of making all the right noises, making all the right shapes, but you're not really moving anything forward. You can be doing loads, but you're not doing anything that's actually moving anything forward. So you can be like terribly busy researching. Oh my God, I've got so much research to do, but you're not starting. You know, someone said one time about researching to write a screenplay. At the end of the day, all that there will be is what your characters say and what they do. So you can research as much as you want, but ultimately the screenplay comes down to what your characters say and what they do. And so, you know, you think that all your research is actually getting you somewhere, but actually sometimes you can research yourself into complete stasis and like you just not moving at all. Or planning. Anyone ever do like a 4-week plan for when they were studying for their exams, and it said what you would be revising for every 2-hour session, what you'd be revising for? And again, a form of procrastination, because while you're making that plan, you're not actually revising. Perfectionism, that is a major one, where you think that the way I think of what we are trying to do is all sculpture. I think is the best example, because what you do is you get your lump of whatever, let's say it's clay, and sculptors, the good ones, they start with just to get a general shape, and then they refine, and then they start working on the details. If you're going to make a bust of something, you don't put your lump of clay down and then start working on the eyelashes. You know, that is perfectionism, and that won't get you anywhere, because you've got no context. You know, you don't provide yourself perfectionism. You deny yourself context of your work. And I was thinking, why maybe do people procrastinate? And I think it's sometimes to do with the vastness of the task. Like, it's so overwhelming that your mind, I think it's the vastness of life, that before you start, there's such infinite possibility with what you're trying to create that it almost overwhelms you. So you just got to, as a coping mechanism, just find some way of coping with it, which may look like doing nothing, working inefficiently, working on other things. You know what I mean? Like perfectionism. That's a coping mechanism for dealing with the vastness of the project. So what have folks said here? Ian says procrastination could be a type of fear. Absolutely. Amber says my procrastination is in outlines. 1 million outlines. There you go. No product. Yep. Eduardo says making the first mark is the hardest. Absolutely. And Blue Knight 88 has just joined. Welcome. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the whys, what it looks like in terms of procrastination. Okay, so Ian, you're absolutely bang on. Fear is a massive one. Fear of failure, fear of success. But there's one way that you guarantee failing is by not starting at all. So begin. Accept that there's fear, but begin anyway. Lean into your fear, push through your fear, whatever you need to do. Just accept that fear is just a chemical biological reaction, and that is not actually, there's nothing actually to be scared of. There's nothing to be scared of. But that doesn't mean just because there's nothing to be scared of that you don't experience fear. If you can take on that paradox, then you have mastered life. You know, be fit. If you can live in experiencing fear and know that there's nothing to be scared of and do what you need to do anyway, you have nailed being a human being. The vastness of the task can sometimes be overwhelming, so just break it down into small chunks. Whenever I think about my book in its entirety, especially I think about writing it, even I've got 10 chapters to go, and even sometimes when I think of that, it feels like, oh, it's never going to be done. But if I think about each chapter individually, right, today all I've got to do is that chapter. And in fact, today all I've got to do is get through the next hour. And in fact, today all I've got to do is sit down and start. Then you have overcome the fear of the vastness of the task. Sometimes you feel guilty and bad about procrastination. And, you know, I was doing a little bit of research before we started. And what happens is that you almost double down on the experience of guilt and bad feelings. And so you procrastinate even more. So it becomes this sort of self-perpetuating entity in your space. So forgive yourself. That's what it said on this thing that I was researching. It just says forgive yourself. The guy was this guy who's like a procrastinator, and he did a TED talk, and he was saying, you know, telling people who are procrastinating to just start is dumb, because they don't feel like procrastination is inside of their control. So advising people to forgive themselves, allowing people to forgive themselves, that is the key to making a difference with procrastination, not just start. Because he says as well, you know, while you're at it, why don't you tell fat people to stop overeating, and why don't you tell depressed people to just cheer up? You know, it's not as simple as that. But forgive yourself. And same as with the fear, if you can be with the fact that you have a tendency to procrastinate, be with the guilt and shame or fear or whatever that comes with that, and get the shit done, again, you have mastered being a human being. Marshall says, I'm a Pisces. We're always procrastinating, guilty as charged. Oh, lol. And F Monty 12 has joined. And Ryan. Hello, Ryan. Marshall, we're going to talk about that in a second. I'm going to come to that. Next one. Instant gratification is a real tempting thing, and it really gets in the way of really making a difference. So, for example, you know, procrastinating, I think weight loss is a really good example, because we all have such a funky relationship with food. But if someone is trying to lose weight, it's very easy to get taken off track with the instant gratification of a burger or ice cream or donuts or whatever it is. We've all done it. Oh, I'm supposed to be losing weight. And someone just goes, do you want to go for a burger? I'm like, hell yeah. So, instant gratification is a problem. And one of the things that I saw when I was reading up before we started this was this idea, which blew my mind, is that it said that we have very little compassion or empathy for our future selves. This blew my mind, because I'm just thinking, God, that is basically what it comes down to, is that when you indulge in instant gratification, you're saying whatever to that future version of yourself, even though it is you. And even though we know that version is us and it's going to be the same person, we don't treat that person with compassion and empathy. Like thinking, what do they want? What will they want for themselves? It won't be to now be carrying the weight of the donuts and the burgers and the... did I plant the seed of... I bet if I start talking about salads, though, nobody's going to want one of them. I see that, yeah, Ian goes, and now I want donuts. And Amber's like, now I want burgers. F Monty 12 knows what I'm talking about. It says I'm right. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. So we have to fall in love with our future self and say to ourselves, what can I give you? What can I do for you, future self? Yeah, guys, should we just go for a burger? How is that? But you see how the pull of instant gratification is, like just the very suggestion. And we think that we're not susceptible to marketing. All that they have to do is show us an image, and then that's planted the seed of it being a delicious treat. And it is not a delicious treat if you're trying to lose weight. It's your procrastination. I'm not saying burgers are bad, burgers are delicious. But like, my point is, we allow the power of suggestion to affect our behavior to the detriment of our future self. Fall in love with your future self. Ask what that future self wants and give it time. the idea, one of the other things that gets in the way is that the idea is perfect in our heads, and as soon as we commit it to paper, page, screen, canvas, whatever, that it will no longer be perfect. We have to let go of that idea of this perfect version. It will be what it will be, but you have to start. You have to do that first draft. I thought, who was it that just said about, where is it? I think it was Eduardo said something about making the first mark is the hardest. And that's absolutely true. Literally pressing in the beginning, doing that first stroke on the canvas, taking that first photo in a photo shoot. Like the first shot of the day when you are shooting something always feels like it's never gonna happen. And then suddenly when it does, it's almost like you break a seal. And then I'm talking about, on a film set or whatever, then it feels like the day flows. I mean, obviously it can still have problems, but it feels like that first shot of the day is so critical and almost feels like it just keeps moving slightly out of reach. The thing that I was just filming just now, there was one of the blocks that we filmed where it just felt like the first shot of the day was always so elusive. Partly we were waiting for it to get dark because it was a night shoot and it was starting to become light. It was sort of April time, so it was getting dark very late, pretty late. But yeah, so just the first draft, because from there you give yourself the context to be able to create something. Editing is as much, everyone edits, everyone's got to be editing. So the idea that, it's going to tumble out of you in its perfect form is a lie anyway. So let's be grown up about that. And then from there, once you've got this first draft, you've got more than 90% of the people that claim to be in the field that you're in you've got something that exists, a draft. And trust yourself that you've got more creativity than just to produce a shit first draft. You've got enough creativity to make a shit first draft, a pretty good second draft, and an even better third draft, and a pretty decent fourth draft, and so on and so on and so on. Trust yourself in that process. Sometimes what gets in the way as well is that people feel like, it doesn't feel like the right time to start or whatever. You're going to have to start to override your emotional experience if you want to get anywhere, because again, when we were talking about the discipline of hard work, people who are successful like that don't go by how they're feeling, they go by what they committed to. So how an NFL player feels at the beginning of training will not, or should not, hopefully, if they're pros, dictate whether they train or not. Those are the people that are amateurs. I didn't feel like it. You don't have to feel like it when you start, but actually experiment with this. I mean that, experiment with this. Try committing to something, doing it all the time, and see how you generate the feeling of wanting to do it as you start to do it. So even today, I was in bed this morning thinking, I've really enjoyed having a little bit of a break from doing these conversations, just to have, the time, the Sunday, to do other things. And I was like, right, I committed to it, let's go. So I started doing my research, started making my notes, and then I started reading some articles that are really interesting. I was suddenly getting into this, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to share this stuff with people. So from a standing start of, I want to stay in bed, to, oh my God, I can't wait to get online. So trust that you in the doing, you generate the motivation to do it. The motivation doesn't precede the doing sometimes. Sometimes the doing precedes the motivation, and from the doing, you generate the motivation. Aussie Dinny 63 and Coral joined, welcome. You got to trust that. You got to start experimenting with that, because I don't think people really appreciate how important this is, and will give you the edge over people that are totally dictated by their feelings. If you want to win at this, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, then overriding how you feel and just getting the fuck on with it is going to put you head and shoulders above so many other people, and give you an edge and an advantage that is almost, it feels like a secret, like the people don't even know about it. That's what Nike are trying to say, and I only just got it about like 5 years ago. I was like, oh, they mean just go out and run. Don't worry about how you feel, just get out and run. Just get out and play ball. Just get out and exercise. Just do it. Stop faffing about, worrying about, oh, I don't feel like running, I don't feel like working out. All right, we'll stay in and just like get soft and squidgy. You know, I'm talking about people who say they want to do that. And I'm not saying everyone has to do that. No judgment. Ryan says that initial effort at the beginning will reap the rewards. Exactly. Even if you don't like it, just do it. Lol. All right. So whatever. What else? Okay. Too much time. This is a problem with procrastination, is you got too much time. How do you end up with too much time? Is because you don't set yourself a deadline, or you don't put it in time, or you don't put like little benchmarks along the way for you to measure that you're on track. What people do is, say for example, they got to get a dissertation in or whatever, they've got like 6 weeks to do it. People tend not to just go, okay, by week 2 I want to have done this, and by week 4 I want this, therefore by week 6 I'll finish. They tidy their sock drawer, and they do their tax return, and they clean their wheel arches on their car or whatever. Is that a thing? Do people do that? And then they've got 2 weeks to go, and that's when they do that. And then yes, anyway, that's what they do. So give yourself deadlines, put it in time. Put it in time. That's a phrase that can be your friend, as if you put it in time. Monty 12 says there's a saying in my village in Italy that goes, one act of doing is worth more than 100 let's do it. There you go. There you go. I love it. I love that saying. Smithy 8687 has joined. Welcome. No motivation is another reason why you might be procrastinating. And I think that might be to do with losing touch with the why. Why are you doing this? Because when you know why, you'll know that it's imperative that you continue, that you do this. So get back in touch with why you are doing something. And know, again, that if you start, you create the motivation to continue. As like I described today with like coming and doing this, is like just in the process of preparing for it, it just created this sense in me that like, where else would I be than here doing this? Sometimes people tell themselves they're not ready, which is another reason they procrastinate. I was just sort of toying with this idea that procrastination was good sometimes because it was about gestation. It was about allowing your idea to gain mass and momentum. But I'm not sure that's true. I say sometimes it is good to just start. No harm can come from just starting, if you do it in a grounded, sensible way. So I'm not talking about, do you know what? Let's do the show right here. And then do you know what I mean? It's like, don't allow yourself to get caught up in doings that prevent the actual thing from happening. Yes, ideas take a while to gather momentum, but just make sure and be honest with yourself. Is that momentum gathering, or is that you just putting off because of fear of failure, fastest to the task, you don't feel right, you're allowing yourself to succumb to instant gratification, you want the idea to be perfect, you know, all those things. Mine says, I have to get stuff done and hate leaving stuff to the last minute. If stuff is left to the last minute, it irks me massively. Yeah, I mean, and that's a good, I mean, use that as your motivation. That's as good a motivation as any. So Marshall, you mentioned something earlier about Pisces, and you know we're let me just go back. What do you say? Pisces and you procrastinate or something like that. So here we go. We are always procrastinating, guilty as charged. Okay. So the next thing, or the final thing I wanted to say just on this issue of procrastination, is that we have to bust some of the myths that we've been telling ourselves about ourselves and procrastination. So one is that I am a terrible procrastinator. That is one myth that we tell ourselves. Not everyone, but you know, Amber, you said it, Marshall, you said it. I'm not saying lie, but change your language, because otherwise you are fixing yourself in this way. And Marshall, you said Pisces are procrastinators, but there might be some Pisces people on here who are like, I don't recognize that as me. So let's just review some of the myths that we have about ourselves. One myth that I had was that to write, I needed a good half a day clear. And if I didn't have that half a day clear, then no writing was possible. after I had my wake-up call with my coach about this whole thing about perfectionism and that being a form of procrastination, I realized that I can write in half an hour. I can get something written in half an hour if I have to, if that's all there is. And so that opened up a whole world, because it meant that rather than me searching through my diary trying to find that elusive half a day, all I needed was a couple of hours or half an hour or whatever, and I could get something done. And even those little half hours or hours chip away at the main goal. So that was one myth that I let go of. Another myth was that I didn't believe in myself completely of the ability to edit a first draft, but now I do. So I'm literally barreling through this book now, getting it down as much as I can, and then knowing that I'm going to go back and there's going to be quite a big editing job, but trusting myself that I will get inspired and I will find better jokes or whatever, or ways of expressing myself, or story beats the next time around. I know it'll be hard work, but I trust myself that I'll be able to do it. So you will have some myths. Those who have succumbed to procrastination, not succumb to it, experience it, because I don't want to make it sound like I want to empower you alongside your procrastination, not make you feel bad about it, because it isn't something to feel bad about. It's something that loads and loads of people experience, but we're just here to transform that in a way so that you can have what you want. You can have procrastinated mindsets. Like, your mind can be going off, going, oh, I want to empty the dishwasher, but just carry on with what you're doing. But yeah, so there might be some myths that you're holding on to around your procrastination that actually aren't true. Like, that it has to be perfect, otherwise there's no point in doing it. That I can only work if everywhere around me is tidy. That's a lie. You know, I can only really work when I feel like it. I can only work when I've had a drink. I can only work when I'm not tired. You know, all these lies, just like really take a look at them and just say to yourself, is that actually true? What happens if I don't have a drink and I try and write a song? Or, you know, whatever it is. Okay, what we got? Okay, so Amber says, I'm fighting it. I enjoy outlines, I do, but I realize I need to actually start the book, screenplays, etc. I can start without an outline. See, Amber, I think the place to start is to connect to your why are you doing this, because there's probably a thread that ties all your outlines and, you know, as in the type of story, thematically the things that you're doing and saying, ties them all together. When you connect with that, you might get some clarity and clearer paths so that you can actually start writing. And also think about that future version of yourself. Do you want that version of yourself in a year's time to just have a pile of outlines, or do you want them to have a book or a screenplay or something that they're proud of? And those are the stakes, really. Those are the stakes that we're dealing with. I can start without an outline, plus fear. Yes, and someone says later, I think, jump afraid. Tom has joined. Welcome. Amber says, I'm afraid that it won't be well written, but I won't know until I've written it. Listen, so one of the things with fear is fear of success, fear of failure, is that you have to jump afraid, but also you just accept it. Accept that it might not be good. Accept that it will probably be a bit shit, because it's a first draft. But like I said, you're ahead of 90% of the people by even having a first draft. You have to trust yourself that you have these skills as an editor as well as a writer. You know, there's an Instagram ad that keeps coming up on my feed of this woman going, you know, I don't think of myself as a good writer. I think of myself as an incredible editor. And I think it's for some sort of writing masterclass or something. And that's what our job. You know, even when a painter first commits paint to canvas, it's not necessarily good. You know, it can be terrible, but they know how to put it right. You know, when the first photograph that a photographer takes is usually just to get their settings right. They know it's not going to be good, but they know that from there, now that they've got a context for what they're doing, oh, it's too dark. Oh, I want to change the contrast on this. Oh, I want to change the ISO or whatever. Now they've got a context. Now they know what adjustments to make. So when you get your first draft down, then you've got a context for what you're trying to do, and you know what adjustments you have to make. You have to get that first draft down. The first draft is your friend. It's not your enemy. That's what people treat the first draft as, like some enemy that they have to somehow control, this uncontrollable beast that will not be tamed. You absolutely are the master of those first drafts, and you just have to trust that. Ryan says, by the way, I hit my goal. Hey, Ryan hit his goal in 4 minutes of his 6 minute mile. We're not even like 3 months in. So Ryan committed to, let me see, I wrote this down. Ryan committed to running 6K in 44 minutes. Damn, boy, that's fast. Well done. Congratulations. So you're the second person out of all of us who's achieved their goal in less than the 3 months. That's right. Manage expectations. under promise and over deliver. That's the way to do it, Ryan. Well done. Marshall says, I definitely agree with changing the language you use to self-motivate. Absolutely. And Andrew says, jump afraid. Hannah has just joined. Welcome. Eduardo says, rough and ready is better than never. Absolutely. Also, language affects action. If you say can't and not can, you never do. Exactly. Tom says, hello, sorry I'm late. No worries. Amber says, I want to write multiple dimension black women and have them out there. There you go. That's the why. Now get on with it, because, we need them. That's exactly what we need. So now that you've got your why, you know that there's a thirst and a need for that. You speak to any black actress or people who love literature. I don't know if you're talking about books or screenplays, but they'll say that they're hungry for that type of stuff. So you have a, we're talking about what's your contribution. That is a massive contribution. Amber says, in 3 days I've written 16 pages. I'm feeling it. Jumping in afraid. That's what I'm talking about. D. Naylor 1983 has joined, and Hattie 351 has joined. Hello. Ryan says, cheers. Well done you, mate. Okay, so. All right, so challenge the myths. Because I said this earlier, but we're dealing with magic here. So you can't play small. You don't want to get yourself too caught up in the procrastination like it's something real. It isn't real. It's just something that's going on in the brain, and that you have the capacity and the power to override that stuff. We are dealing with magic. We're dealing with creative energy. We're dealing with the law of attraction. We're dealing with bending time, which sounds fantastical, but that's really what we are dealing with. Because if you look at how you feel when you really get into the flow of a creative activity, and time just disappears. So, yeah. And also, the creative field is magical because there's no explanation really for why one person succeeds and one doesn't, and why things work out for one person or another, and why some things just blow up and some things never really get the recognition that people feel they deserve. So you want to be playing big. You want to remember that anything is possible with application, and you want to commit to you so that you can deliver this contribution that you have discovered in your why. I feel like, and this goes back to this thing about falling in love with your future self, I feel like we fail ourselves too often and too easily sometimes when we are willing to make unwavering commitments to other people, but we don't tend to do the same for ourselves. Like, so if your friend says, oh, can you help me move? You don't wake up in the morning and go, I don't feel like it, because they're moving house and it's important to them. But when it's your own situation, I'm not going to talk about burgers again. I nearly brought up burgers. But say, for example, with your own writing, you're like, oh, I don't feel like it today. And then you don't. So why can we make unwavering commitments to other people? Like we don't with employers, generally speaking, we're not like, I don't feel like it today. Sorry, I'm not coming in. I mean, we do that occasionally, a couple of duvet days. But generally speaking, we turn up when we say we're going to turn up because we've made a commitment. Maybe because we're present to the exchange. I'll give you my time and effort and know-how, and you give me money and a desk and healthcare, or whatever it is. But we stick to those commitments, but not necessarily to ourselves. Ryan's just saying he's off. No worries. So thank you for being here. See you soon. So we make this commitment to other people, but not to ourselves. So I think it's time to really start to get present to the fact that this future self is kind of depending on you, like completely, for what that future self of you, your future self has or has not, is dealing with or is not. So yeah. So we need to make an unwavering commitment to ourselves, to our dreams, to connect to that. Why are we even doing this? So that the grind completely makes sense. And and we dare greatly to deal with magic, and to deal with the magic of the thing that we're trying to create. Because if you think of it in a really mundane kind of way, like, you know, any other job, then yeah, you are going to get caught up with silly ideas and procrastination and, you know, whatever, things like that. But when you think about how grand your dream is and what it would feel like to realize it and who it would impact, you know, how could you not commit yourself completely? Commit yourself completely as well with making space for rest, making space for being of service, making space for recreational time, making space for downtime, rest time, or whatever. I kind of said that already, but do you know what I mean? So it's not just all about graft. Graft is important, but like I was saying before with that creative toolkit, sometimes it's better to be finite, you know, like, so I commit to a 3-month project, take a break. Commit to another, like a 6-month project, take a break. Commit to a month, yeah. So do you know what I mean? So manage yourself so that you're not wringing yourself dry, because that serves no one. And it's an ego-based madness to think that I've got to get it all done and I can't stop possibly ever. You got to live a rich life, because a rich life where you are happy and content is a massive contribution to the rest of the world. Because how much do you enjoy being around people that are content and happy with themselves, as opposed to people that are mad busy? It's quite stressful being around people that are like so concerned with how much they have to do and how busy they are that you can't even really. And we've all done it. We've all been that person, and we've all been around people like that. And it is massively sort of. It's quite unnerving. It creates anxiety in you when you're around someone who's anxious like that about their own situation. So being chill is a massive contribution. So if you can master all of that, then your goals and your dreams are assured. They're certain. They're certainties. And if they're not, you'll be so chill and cool with it all that it won't matter. F. Monty says, I totally agree with you. I myself find it hard to be steadfast in my commitment to myself and then than in that to others. That's always the way, which is why sometimes with running and working out, sometimes they say partner up with somebody, because then you keep your commitment to them. You're more likely to keep your commitment to them than if you to run on your own, which is weird. F. Monty also says, being earnest with yourself by conceding yourself a great when you've completed a break in a way you're truly proud of. I believe that could spark a positive circle for us. Absolutely. And Keisha has just joined. Oh, a treat, not a break. Okay, got it. All right, guys. Well, listen. That was it. Actually made it. I'm getting the countdown now. So I just wanted to say thank you all for being here. I'm just going to do a quick after thingy, because I just want to check in, see if anyone's on who is taking on these 3-month goals, and just see where we're at. We're going to do another one of these in a month's time, because there'll be a month or 4 weeks to go until the end of this 3-month commitment. I can't remember what the topic is. I think it's love. I think it might be love. But anyway, so I'm going to sign off now. I'll come back on afterwards. But if you have taken on a 3-month task and you just want to feedback and say how you're getting on with it, and I'll tell you how I'm getting on with mine, that would be awesome. Otherwise, have a fantastic rest of your Sunday and a brilliant week, and good luck with the rest of your 3-month challenge if you've taken that on, 3-month project. But I'll speak to you about that on the other side. All right, guys, see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.